Welcome back. Glad you're here. You joined us last year at the forum, and we appreciated your perspective on obviously safety in the industry. This year is a different year with the tragedy of 5342 in January. A lot has changed since then. You've remained a strong champion of ours, strong champion for aviation safety and independent investigations. So I know that we all appreciate that. For those that are new, a little background on Chair Homendy. Before joining the NTSB in 2018, an extensive record of service on Capitol Hill and has union roots, serving as a legislative representative for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where she was a proud member of Teamsters Local 70 and working at the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. Completed a private pilot ground school, and we're going to get you a private pilot before too long here.
It was so expensive.
Does anybody here know how expensive airplane training is?
It's $375 an hour.
Well, that's an expensive airplane. Does anybody have an airplane a little cheaper than that?
Since 1972.
Yeah.
Maybe
We'll
I
find
should
an
go
old
to the
one for you.
150 maybe.
We'll get my Cub out there and just got to hand prop it. But and you got a Master of Transportation Safety Administration from Clemson University.
Go Tigers.
So once again, thanks for joining us today. Is that a college team? We're in a Chicago sports
Stop
town.
it. They're not doing real good this year. I mean,
The Bears or Clemson?
Clemson. I mean,
Both.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks again for joining us.
Sure. I love
I know it's an ongoing investigation, but to start, I want to ask for an update on 5342. I know you can't talk a lot about it, but we lost two of our own, and we'd like to appreciate if there's where it is at now and what the next steps are in that process.
Yeah, I actually can talk a lot about it. First, it really was just a significant tragedy. And just to, I had gotten home pretty late. It was 8, it might have been right at 8:45. And I actually had gotten a call from a friend of mine at FAA who said, "Jennifer, where are you right now?" And I said, "Well, I just got home." And he said, "Don't ask me any questions. Just grab your stuff and go. Head back to D.C." And, then, of course, everybody's trying to call me while I'm driving, and you just should not call the NTSB chair while I'm driving. So I keep pulling over. I really got like 5 miles every 5 seconds. And, but a terrible, we were there within an hour. We send our chief of special operations out first, and then he'll let us know when we're not in the way. We never want to get in the way of any sort of search or recovery operation. So, I'm constantly thinking, we are all constantly thinking about the families who have really been incredible through this. But the investigation, right away, the team was at DCA next to Hangar 6 the whole time. We released, obviously, the urgent safety recommendations regarding helicopter Route 4 in February. Those were immediately implemented. I think that's the fastest one of our recommendations has been implemented. So kudos to Sean Duffy for doing that. We worked together really from the day of the tragedy. It was pretty much his first day. And then they've been, the parties to the investigation have been hard at work with our team. And then we had a 3-day, 33-hour hearing at the end of July, which, once again, we had no air conditioning for part of one of the days. But, we just kept going, and, it was a tough hearing, and we got through a lot of issues. We've identified a number of concerns, whether it's, the helicopters themselves, to the design of that route and the airspace around DCA, to some things that can change in air traffic control, of course. But there are a lot of issues, and certainly with the Army, there are a lot of issues. We have pretty much concluded our fact-finding portion of the investigation. Almost all of our investigative documents are open to the public on our public docket, which you can get to through our website. And then we're moving now into the analysis phase, which is really only in the NTSB, with the goal of finishing by the anniversary.
Well, thank you for that. Maybe on a more basic level, can you just walk us through the typical process for a major accident investigation like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that everybody thinks all we do is aviation.
Yeah.
We actually do all modes of transportation. And what's pretty incredible is our investigative process. While the issues may be different, our process itself is standard across all modes of transportation. So it's the same process regardless of what mode we're working in. I'll start here. So after something happens, and maybe I'll back it up a little bit more, when all day long I might get on my cell phone different notifications of an accident that has occurred or an incident, and a lot of it's GA or other modes of transportation, but we'll get a notification. Then depending on the circumstances, it'll go to what we call a chair's call. We'll have that call with the entire team: aviation safety, safety recommendations, communications, media relations, everybody else, government affairs, you name it, to determine who's going to go, whether a board member is going to go, whether it's what staff is going to go. We're all on rotation, and so we know a year ahead of time who is on duty for what weeks. We might switch, but generally we know all year long. And then once we go, our team has a process where, after a bit of fact gathering, they will form groups, investigative groups, to focus on certain areas that they specialize in, that they will lead. And that could be in operations, it could be in survival factors, human performance, could be in vehicle performance when we're talking about on the highway side. In this one, helicopter operations, helicopter systems. And so there are a lot of groups that are formed, and then parties to the investigation. Parties to the investigation are entities that we believe can provide expertise, technical experts that can help us identify the facts on the investigation. And so those parties, those technical experts, will be added to certain investigative groups, depending on where we believe we'll need their technical expertise. And then those groups work together to investigate the issues, to investigate their particular areas for that investigation. And they will develop a factual report, and at the end of that process with the factual report, they will all read it and they'll sign off on it. There'll be, interviews throughout that process that they'll all participate in. And, as that goes forward, once that factual portion of the investigation is done, then the NTSB moves forward with their own analysis.
Very good. So you mentioned party status. The NTSB traditionally grants ALPA party status when our members are involved in an accident or incident. Can you talk a little bit about ALPA's effectiveness and our part of that?
Yeah, it's key, part of our investigation. Working together, it's not just the NTSB. I think what's unique in our process is we bring together all different entities, including ALPA. We can't see everything in an investigation, bringing people together. You might have different questions and interviews. ALPA participates in the interviews of witnesses and others that we need to talk to as part of our investigation, and help us identify issues that we might want to look into. So it's a key part of our investigation. I will mention, and this is something I've been really pushing the agency towards, because I am really concerned about safety for individuals after there is a tragedy. We are now, as of October 1st, we're going to redact names in Yeah, we tried to get there on 5342, and it wasn't fully implemented. But you know, when I started it, there was a lot of, well, we can't really do that. Why can't we do that? Because when we do a report, we're not naming people. You know, it is the captain, you know, or the pilot flying, the pilot monitoring. It's not names.
Right.
And so I said, why don't you do a look? And once they looked, they looked at a couple of accidents and was like, oh, well, Betty is so-and-so's neighbor, and they live in this neighborhood, and this is where they, you know, and these are their other neighbors. And then, well, actually, we could triangulate where they live. And so, I mean, it's a real concern, especially now. And I was really afraid that, hey, you know, do we really need somebody's name out there? Because it's their safety that's important too.
Well, look, I personally really appreciate that because I know how many phone calls you and I have had, you know, sometimes little heated phone calls saying, hey, come on, you got to take these names out. And then, well, this person is saying that we can't because of this policy, and we kind of work through it. And
I mean, I'm half Italian. I didn't think they were heated.
wow.
I'm also
They're not heated. All right.
So it's like, that's not heated.
Yeah, all right, so not heated. Let's not misrepresent. Just, come on, you got to do this, please. And, well, I can't do this. So, yeah, no, not heated. That would not be the definition. Right.
You know, very passionate.
Passionate. All right, let the record reflect the word is passionate. So, but yeah, look, it's not only for the crew members involved, but for those that are interviewed as part of the process, because if people see their names getting published, then that's going to be a disincentive for future folks to be part of the process. So thank you for your leadership on that.
Yeah, in this case, not everybody, for 5342, not everybody got that, but we've got everybody together now where the policy goes into effect on October 1st, and it's not just an aviation incident. It's in all. And, you know, I mean, and anyone that nobody wants to raise a man then.
Not that we could tell looking into those lights anyway, right?
You know, there's resistance sometimes to change.
You don't say.
You know, change is good. I always tell people, look, I mean, I always hear, well, what if this isn't going to go right? What if there's a problem? Well, then we fix it, or we try something else. And I try to say it's when we don't try, that's failure.
For sure.
If it's just always, I have to say, they should just never say to me, well, we've always done it this way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. There you go. That's absolutely. And it's okay if something takes time as long as there's progress. It's not, well, it just takes time and then nothing ever happens. That's the most frustrating, right? But speaking of passion, something that I think everyone in this room is certainly passionate about, and you spoke so well on it last year at this forum and drew a lot of cheers from this crowd, is the importance of having two pilots on the flight deck at all times. Okay. And your support for that related to the Alaska door plug incident, as well as as the winners of the Superior Aviating Award. This is obviously still a fight for us going on. Can you expand on the value of that and what you see in investigations related to that, just to go a little further from what you said last year?
Yeah, and we just completed Alaska 1282 this past summer, and in that report, we have several findings in the report of how important it is to have two crew in the cockpit. And so we needed to reiterate that. We wanted to be on record on that. And so last year I talked about FedEx and 1280, with Austin, and FedEx 1432 in Austin, and then also Alaska 1282. You can clearly see with both of those investigations and so many more how critical it is to have two crew supporting each other. So I can't imagine how either of those would have occurred if it was only one.
Yeah, but yet there are those in industry and special interests that keep pushing forward for economic reasons. So, I do appreciate your partnership in highlighting the importance of having at least two pilots in the flight deck at all times. So that's a partnership that we can certainly be passionate in agreement on, for sure, right? Another big issue coming out of the tragedy in DC, as well as everything else, I guess just this week, telecom outages in Atlanta resulted in a single runway operations. So ATC modernization is, next gen is past gen. We need to get, we need to move forward with this in a timely fashion. What are your thoughts, and based on the board, what do you and the board feel about it, or any specific thoughts other than just, yes, we need to do it?
Well, we do need to do it, but, and the recent investment is only a down payment on a much larger package. But, when we didn't really get into it in the Austin report, but I can tell you for air traffic control, for weather personnel in Austin, we had learned that the personnel that they relied on for getting the weather was housed now in the old smoking lounge with no windows. And so they actually, in order to access the weather, they had to leave the building, go outside, and it was like this with their cell phones. And I mean, we were horrified, right? And so then it was, and by the way, we've been trying to get intranet access from the FAA for about a year, but we haven't been able to do that because they didn't give us a password. And we were like, what? So, I mean, that's just just a little bit about, of what's going on. Obviously there are other issues that we're also really focused on, and, we have to be careful though, as we upgrade, that we are focused on safety. I mean, we have right now where we've talked a number of times on runway incursion technology, both in the cockpit and then for ATC. ASDX, obviously, there's not going to be more ASDX, but they're doing that surface awareness initiative. Right now, we're doing an investigation on a runway incursion in Nashville. And they had the new technology that went in place after Austin. Well, it doesn't have an alert for air traffic control. It's just a display. And when we asked, well, why doesn't it have alert? It's not, that isn't, our recommendations are it should have an alerting capability. And the response was, from the contractor was, we could have provided that, but that was more money. So we have to be very clear that as we're investing in new technologies, that it's not just on the cheap.
Right.
That safety has to be first and foremost, and that has to be the focus. So for that investigation, I'm pretty sure we're going to weigh in on it's not good enough. Yeah. They have to do better on that.
Agreed. We're going to have all of the above. Well, we can't get them to spend a little bit of money on things like that. So how are we going to have these all of the above? So focus on things that can prevent tragedies and so on. What other issues do you think are important in aviation right now?
There are so many. I have to say, and I was talking to, I ran into Craig Hoskins earlier. And we were, he briefly mentioned it, and I said, that's one I want to talk about. After Air India, within, I would say, 2 hours, there were these AI-generated videos of exactly what happened in the cockpit. And the day after, somebody in one of our operational offices, not in any of the modes, came up to me and said, did you see that video from Air India? And I was like, oh God, what video? And she shows me, and I'm like, that's not real. And what do you mean it's not? People believe this stuff. And my concern is, with so much AI out there, so much being generated using AI. I'm not saying AI is bad. I mean, we use AI right now to find accidents in other modes of transportation. We know what's going on in aviation, but we don't have reporting on highway crashes. And I don't like finding out about it 17 hours later after they've cleaned it up and moved on. So there are benefits to using AI, but there are also significant challenges. And I'm very concerned that with the use of AI and the demand after an accident to find out what happened now, that it's going to really sway the perception of the public and passengers. And so we have to be really careful there. I mean, and I'll also say, you know, from a media standpoint, there seems to be more and more urgency to what happened now. You know, I did the New York helicopter recently, and the breakup of the helicopter, and I went to the first press conference, and usually we're laying out what our process is, and I said, look, you know, and I'm very clear, I'm going to set what the limits are in that presser, and I say, we're not going to tell you what happened. We're here to get the perishable evidence. You know, this just occurred. We're still gathering information. We're actually still looking for components of the helicopter. And, you know, I get through everything and I say, okay, you know, name, affiliation, raise your hand, call on the first person. What caused it? Didn't I just tell you not to? Okay, I'll answer it again. And I'm very patient. We'll answer that again. Second question, do you know what caused it? 4 questions. I was like, am I clear? Am I not clear? I don't understand, but you know, I continue to be patient. So there's that. Outside of the media side, I am still really concerned about lithium batteries. I have to say, when they ask you at the airport, do you have any lithium batteries in your luggage? I mean, I think most people are thinking laptop or some sort of battery pack, some charger or whatever.
I mean, people actually listened when they asked that?
That's actually a good point.
Okay.
My guess is no.
Just like the people that were at the press conference.
Yeah,
okay.
That's actually a good point.
Okay. Well, let's say they did.
Let's say they did, but you're not thinking like my toothbrush. You know, I mean, there's so much that has a lithium battery in it now. And I've seen different videos where you've got luggage on fire, you know, before it's loaded, you know, so I am really concerned. I continue to be concerned.
Yeah, I could see that. That's one that could get away from us pretty quickly. We're going to be out of time before I can ask you all these questions.
How many?
No, we're
we
good.
have
We're good.
We could do a lot in 6 minutes and 45.
But I'm going to go with this one here.
Read it fast. Read it fast.
I'm not reading the entire question. I'm just going to cut to the chase.
Okay, just go to the question.
One of the most valuable parts of the way you operate is that you obviously don't assign blame. You're there to seek and understand why something happened and change so it doesn't happen again instead of pointing fingers, right? Are there any recommendations in aviation that keep coming up that should have been implemented or should urgently be implemented?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, you know, we see things that repeat themselves all the time. And I'm going to say something outside of Part 121. The one that really concerns me, and I mentioned New York helicopter, is...
Oh, by the way, why did that crash?
My passion is showing. Look, the time is ticking away. Air tours. We are very concerned about air tours. We did a report where we combined a number of air tours, whether it was, you know, the World War II historic flights or air tours in Hawaii or air tours in New York, you name it. We continue to see significant issues, and we've called for more regulation in that area, and it's one we continue to say over and over and over again. But I have to say, for all our recommendations, they're all very critical and important. It's hard for me to pick one over another because somebody died. So I will say all of them are critical.
Is there a common cause or thread amongst different modes of transportation? Because we all obviously just think about aviation most of the time. Is there something that's kind of common?
No, but what I will say across all the modes of transportation, you know, in the other modes, it's very much the human is to blame. That's true for rail, a little less so for pipelines, but definitely still there, and certainly on highways. Instead of taking a system approach, which is a concern. I continue to use, not my phrase, but an MIT professor who said human error is a symptom of a system that needs to be redesigned, and that's true across all modes of transportation. We can't just focus on the human. We have to focus on everything else that led that human there, or failed that human.
Gotcha. All right, here is a very impressive one. In an increasingly partisan landscape, I think we can all acknowledge that, you were impressively nominated by both President Trump and President Biden and confirmed unanimously. How do you insulate the board from the partisanship in DC right now, and why do you think it's so critical that you do stay independent, which we all agree?
Yeah, I, in particular, and maybe it's because I worked for a committee that was pretty bipartisan, I don't care about party labels. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Are you interested in safety? And I've always treated, everybody the same. You need something, you need a briefing, you want to talk about this investigation, let's talk about safety. And I think we often in this political atmosphere focus on where the division is and differences in opinion or views instead of starting with where we agree. I cannot imagine any single person in any political party that believes somebody should die. Nobody believes anybody should die. Every life should be saved. And if you start with that premise, I think you can get to agreement, maybe not on everything. And honestly, I don't think you should. I also think it's important that you approach every issue or even every investigation of, well, tell me why you believe that, because maybe I need to learn something different. Maybe my view should change. And I have to tell you, I learned this the hard way on bike safety. We did a bike safety report, and and I'm a bicyclist, and I was hell-bent on everyone should wear helmets. Until some groups came to me and said, well, what about somebody who can't afford a helmet? Or somebody who can't afford a bike and uses the bikes like we have across the street. I didn't think about that, and maybe that's their only way to work. So that really did change my view on a recommendation that we still have, but I'm never afraid to think a little bit differently and maybe say, yeah, I might be wrong on this. But I do reach out to everybody. I think that's critical.
Couldn't agree more. That's one of the reasons I feel like ALPA is effective, is because we're pilot partisan, and who doesn't want aviation to be safe? So if you break it down to, well, we have different political backgrounds in this room, and people feel differently, but we all want aviation to be safe.
Absolutely.
So for sure. Well, as we close, anything else that you've got this entire room, and I'm told this is going to be turned into a podcast, so you may have a lot more people hearing this. So anything you want to add for the members of the Airline Pilots Association?
Yes, we are not doing enough on mental health. We got, you guys have been great, but we got to a point where we had 45, I think it's like 42 recommendations out of that aviation, rulemaking committee. Yep. And where are we?
Well, the House passed the bill on Monday, so
yes.
That's a step in the right direction. So at least there is some movement, but
yes,
I agree with you 100%.
There is some movement, but we have so much more to do. And, I think it is critical, and we can't let that go.
No, for sure. And thank you for your support on that.
Sure.
Absolutely. All right.
9 seconds. Look, we did it.
We did it. All right. Well, as pilots, we certainly appreciate all the hard work that the rest of the NTSB does on behalf of the traveling public, all of us as airline pilots. Oh, it's even flashing now. Look, it's flashing. So thank you so much for everything, and we're really proud to partner with you on these investigations. And thank you again for your leadership in what are very tough times. So,
well, thank you to you, and thank you to all of you. We couldn't do what we do without you.
Right.
So really appreciate it.
Chair Homendy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.